All right, let's talk about the trends and what's going on in real estate for Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point, and the rest of the Triad. Then I'm gonna give some predictions kind of sprinkled throughout of where I think the market is gonna be heading through the rest of the year. First thing I want you to take a look at were the total closed sales in June at 1,859. This is the lowest number of closed sales for June in over a decade. Now we'll put up pending sales for this same time period. You take a look at that, that looks like that number has fallen off a cliff as well. And we have agents that are leaving the business in record numbers, and other agents that are resorting to shady tactics to get business and keep business. And given all this information, what do you think happened to prices in June of 2024 in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point, and the surrounding area? What do you think happened to prices? Yes, they hit an all-time high. Surprising, I know. And given all those numbers, you're hearing stories and clickbaits about a real estate recession and a crash and all of these things like that. But let's take a look through the actual numbers. Let's cut through the drama and actually see what's going on. And if you need help buying or selling real estate, my contact information is on the screen right now, but it's also in the description below. And remember, people look at a real estate crash or a real estate recession in different ways, right? That could be off of the number of sales at any given time, or it could be off of actual pricing. And remember, you know, the two don't always go hand in hand, which is why we're having this conversation right now, because we saw a record low number of sales in June of 2024, but we saw the opposite action in pricing. You know, I guess some of that real estate crash, recession, all this stuff like that is depending on what they want you to click, to watch, or read. But anyway, it's the first thing that's important for you to know in the Winston-Salem and Greensboro real estate market right now. That's still about a third of the homes are getting multiple offers. And yes, this is far fewer than it was just a couple of years ago, but remember, this is still happening pretty regularly, so it's important to know that first of all going in. I've had a few listings recently and almost all of them have gotten multiple offers within the first few days of being on the market. So again, it's not the melee like it once was, but it's still a competitive market for buyers right now, but things are getting better and we're going to talk about that in just one second. So the overall numbers, right, in the number of total closings and the pending sales, those are down as we just talked about, but let's get into the last part of the overall numbers is the pricing. And for the number of sales to be going down, but pricing continuing to go up is a kind of incredible thing. But as always, we're going to break down the supply and demand numbers and take a deeper look into those. And I'm going to tell you kind of what I think is going to happen through the rest of the year with this as well. Now, new listings in June on the supply side were down. They were up a little bit of June of 2023, so a little bit higher than last year, but still a little bit lower for a typical June. And talking about new listings, let's talk about where these things come from, right? Here are the big places where supply comes from. The biggest place is existing home sales, right? Somebody lists the house for sale, they're going to move, they're going to dump, whatever the case may be. They list a house for sale. Existing sales are the largest chunk of the supply. And as we've talked about, and I got some heat for this a couple years ago when I started talking about this, so many people are locked into those really, really low interest rates from a few years ago. There's going to be a percentage of those that are just still going to kind of make do with what they have unless they really have to sell for a major life event. And we're kind of seeing that happen, just not as many existing home sales coming on the market. Now, the next place is foreclosures where supply can come from. Someone unfortunately loses their home, the bank takes it back, lists it back on the open market and sells it. And whatever you might be reading, foreclosures are very, very low. Yes, they did increase a little bit year over year, but we're still near all-time low numbers. And as we've talked about before, North Carolina is also doing much better than most states for foreclosure filing. We have some of the lowest rates of delinquency in the entire nation in North Carolina. So I don't see a big supply coming from foreclosures anytime soon whatsoever. And the last place is builders. Builders create supply by developing neighborhoods and building new homes, obviously. And while we're seeing new construction listings, remember, about 2 times what we see typical, because that has generally been a little bit lower number in Winston-Salem and Greensboro versus other parts of the country that have these large master plan communities, our new construction numbers have typically been a little bit lower. So even though we're seeing it double what it was, it still might not be what you're used to when you see these massive developments all over the place in other parts of the country. And also I'll add in now is, you know, builders are a little bit hesitant. The rates that affect you to borrow affect them to borrow as well, but they also have to have confidence in the economy moving forward. They have to go through permitting, find the labor and all that stuff like that. And builders right now, while they're building more in Winston-Salem and Greensboro than they have, and our listings are about double, there's a little bit hesitation on full-scale development for some areas. All right, next on the supply side, we're going to put up the month supply on a 10-year chart because I want you to see where this was. And next, we're going to put up the total homes for sale on that same 10-year chart. Because while it's good that we've seen these numbers jump up, right? We're up to about 2.5 months supply of inventory, and we're over 4,000 total homes for sale right now throughout the Triad. When you take a look in comparison to what it was, you know, just a little while ago, while we've improved, it's still not close to what it is in more normal times. So right now, even while we're seeing these tick up a little bit, these numbers still favor sellers pretty heavily. But, you know, it is getting better for buyers at the same time. I do think this is going to continue through the year. It's going to be a little bit better time for buyers than it was in 2023, and definitely better than, 2020, 2021 as well. Going to be much more simple for buyers right now. It's still going to be competitive, but it is going to be better beginning right now, probably through election season. And here's one of the reasons that I say that. If you look at the 7-day snapshot, so this is, when I'm filming this, is just at the end of June and beginning of July, right? We're taking a look at this 7-day snapshot. For the longest time in our MLS, just about all year, we saw about a 1-to-1 ratio of new listings coming on the market and homes going under contract. Meaning if we have, 98 new listings, we saw 99 homes go under contract, or something really close to that 1-to-1 ratio. Just about everything that was coming on the market was going under contract in about a week. Now for the last couple weeks, we're starting to see what we see on this 7-day snapshot. We're seeing that there's about a 15% increase or inventory beginning to build from new listings coming on the market and a far fewer number going under contract. It's not huge, like I said, it is about 15% more, but that is, much better than that 1-to-1 ratio. So we're seeing inventory build, just from this rough estimate, about 15% more over the last couple weeks than it was before. I look for this trend to continue through the summer. This is partly because of seasonality. In the Winston-Salem market, for instance, they're changing the school calendar this year, so the kids are having a shorter summer. So people are condensing their plans, they're taking more vacation sooner and things like that. So we've just seen a little bit of a seasonal slowdown that's been, kind of affected by some local events as well. But generally this time of year, we do start to see a slowdown, but this is the first time we've kind of seen inventory start to build like this over the last couple weeks. And like I said, I continue to see supply improve throughout the year as more people list their home. I don't know if you recall last year, usually July or August are the peak time for new listings in the, real estate seasons. But last year we bounced around in a range for like 3 or 4 months after that. It was really weird to see. Never saw that in the last 10 years. I don't know if something similar is going to happen this year, but I do see inventory continue to build throughout the summer. So look for supply to improve throughout the year. Good news for buyers. Maybe some pricing breaks will be in there as well. But let's take a look at the demand numbers to really kind of see what that all means. Now, it's no secret with high prices and rate hikes the last couple years, demand has taken a huge hit. But just like I said at the beginning, still about a third of homes are going in a multiple offer situation in the first weekend on the market. It's important to understand the local numbers and not just look at these on a national basis, because all real estate is local. For instance, our percent of list price stayed at 100. I think this is going to be very similar through the rest of the year. If market conditions really soften up some, we might see it drop, a point or two. I do kind of doubt that. I do think we're going to stay right around this 100% list to sale price ratio for the foreseeable future, with our next big opportunity for buyers to get a discount probably again right up around the election season and then through the winter time, which is kind of a typical slowdown that we see. I mean, the other part I see buyers have an opportunity again is right now though. There is some slowness and some hesitancy in the market, and with seeing inventory build like we did on the 7-day snapshot, this could be a good opportunity for buyers right now through about the next month or so, and then again as we get closer to the election. All right, next on the demand side, let's take a look at the days on market. So days on market, again, these are all those, April and May contracts that were closing when we're kind of in that, that spring rush there. So we kind of thought this would come down. It's kind of seasonal. That was expected. And the days on market are a little bit higher than they were the last year and the last year before that as well. So again, softening overall, but keep the big picture in mind too. 12 days on market on average is still very, very quickly. Many homes are, moving in a week or less. But the biggest indicator in demand is price. Even when we see fewer listings, the biggest indicator on demand is price. What are people willing to pay for a specific house? And like I said, we hit a new all-time high in average sales price in June. And while I might not be in favor of this number, as I've talked about many, many times, it doesn't mean the same house is that much more. This is just the average sales price throughout the entire MLS. It is a good indicator on the overall direction. Now, seasonally, this does happen, right? When we have that big spring rush that comes in the beginning part of the summer, the market has a lot more activity in it, so we expect it to be more competitive. It is still interesting that given all these headwinds against buyers right now, with high rates, high prices, and things like that, our average sales price did jump again, when in a lot of parts across the country, it is just not doing that. It is declining by 5, 10, and more percent. So when we're in an area in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point, there are more people moving here than there are leaving, like say Chicago. That's going to put additional pricing pressure because they will cash out on a home from somewhere else and come here to get a more affordable home. It just happens to be when you're one of those relocation markets, we're just going to see that happen happen. Even in our area that is not a big, well-known market like, Raleigh or Charlotte in North Carolina as well. We see it on a much smaller scale here, but I think the same logic still does apply. To give some practical advice if you're looking to buy or sell in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point right now, I think overall activity is going to fluctuate and really start to trickle down, especially as we get closer to the election. That is typical during election years. We just see overall activity kind of slow as each side, whatever that might be, or no side, is just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with the economy, with the election, and there's just so much other noise in the marketplace. Overall activity will slow down some. So we'll probably continue to see fewer sales than normal. And what does this mean if you are buying or selling? Sellers, I think, talking in July of 2024 that this is not the best time to list. We should get through this summer as we get closer to the school year starting, then reconsider that again. But I think this next 4 weeks, probably not the best for you unless you really have to. Remember, about a third of the homes still are getting multiple offers. So it's not a dead stop, like I would say if it was in the middle of the winter, but not the best time if you can wait just a couple more weeks. Opposite story for buyers. I think if you take advantage of this time right now that's a little bit slower in the market, there are some deals to be had. And especially if a seller does not see their house get sold really quick, that you could come in there and get some favorable terms and maybe even discounts on price. Or again, like we've said before, if you see homes that have been on the market for 2 weeks and longer, those are some prime candidates for some discount pricing. Maybe a seller was testing the market at a higher number. The market reacted, they're just not going to buy it, which we see happen plenty. You can not only get a discount off of that price, but you could probably get it lower than what you would have if they would have priced it correctly in the first place. So buyers, be on the lookout for homes that have been on the market just a little bit longer than normal. So I think buying your opportune time is right now is probably the best. It's going to be pretty decent, I think, really for the next couple months as we get closer to the election and things slow down. If you want a chance to maybe get a deal, it's going to be that through, probably the end of the year is going to be probably that peak time in November and December, which is more typical. I do think it might be amplified a little bit more this year being an election year for a buyer. So keep that percent list to sales price ratio in mind. They're not like smoking deals, but if you want a less competitive situation or a situation where you can get a little bit of a discount, those are the times that I really think about doing that if you're looking to buy. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to be a resource for you. You can reach out to me directly at jeff@govalentino.com. Thanks.